All right, good evening, everyone. It is good to have you with us tonight, either live in person here at City Hall on Tuesday, August 6th, 2019, or on accgov.com or on Charter Channel 180. This is also available on YouTube for those YouTubers out there in the universe. We are going to begin with our roll call, so I'm going to ask Clerk Spratlin to call the roll.
Davenport, Parker.
Here.
Link, Wright,
Present.
Denson,
Here.
Naismith,
Present.
Edwards,
Here.
Harrod,
Present.
Thornton,
Here.
and Hamby. And we have four.
All right, fantastic. Given that we have a quorum, I will ask for approval of the minutes of the meetings of Tuesday, July 2nd and Thursday, July 18th. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. Second.
All right, I have a motion from Commissioner Neesmith, a second from Commissioner Denson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, minutes are approved. Clerk Spratlin, is there any written communication?
For entry into the record, we have the operational audit of the Clarke County Sheriff's Office.
All right, thank you, Clerk. All right, just a couple items before we get going with our business at hand. First, I'm very pleased that in our continued theft of great employees from other municipalities around the southeast, I'd like to introduce everybody here in the chamber tonight and everybody at home to Josh Edwards, our new Assistant County Manager. Josh, if you want to come up to the podium so TV land can see you live in person. Welcome to Athens-Clarke County, sir.
Great to be here.
Where have you been all your life?
I'm glad to be here finally. Mayor, Commission, Josh Edwards. This is my third week at Athens-Clarke County, and I couldn't be happier to be here. I've been in local government administration for about 12 years now, and I've started north in Fairfax County, Virginia, and slowly worked my way south, and this is as far south as I intend to go. I've worked in Fairfax County. I've worked in the town of Cary, North Carolina, and in the city of Durham, North Carolina. And over the past, I've been focused on financial management, strategic planning, process improvement, and other forms of continuous improvement. The last 5 years, I've worked for the city of Durham, leading their strategic planning efforts, helping to build the Office of Performance and Innovation, which was partially funded by the Bloomberg Philanthropies. And we had an innovation team that was focused on better connecting justice-involved residents to sustainable employment. So my focus area is thinking about how strategic planning, the budget, and government operations kind of ties together. I've really enjoyed meeting all the department directors over the last 2 weeks. I've been very impressed with the staff here, and I'm looking forward to being a part of the great work that's going on. I've gotten to meet many of you, and I've appreciated the welcome and hospitality that I've received. And it's a great honor to work for the manager and with the other assistant manager, Deborah Lonan. So I've really enjoyed my time here, and I'm looking forward to the future and getting to work with all of you. Thanks for having me.
Great, thanks, Josh. So glad to have you here on the team. All right, I am going to come down for a brief presentation. All right. We benefit a great deal from partnerships with our private sector community here in Athens-Clarke County, and none more so than with the organization that I'm about to mention. So longtime Athenians will know that one of our major employers, and in fact, our very largest private sector employer in Athens-Clarke County, is Pilgrim's Pride. And for those of you who've been down the Barber Street corridor in recent weeks, you've noticed lots of activity there. And that was, in fact, because Pilgrim's Pride was putting tens of millions of dollars into system upgrades at their facility, where there are about 1,200 employees. So I'm really excited about what they decided to do while some of that work was underway. So Pilgrims chose to continue to, quote, take care of their family and pay personnel to work on community projects. And with the interest of giving back to the community, one of those projects was a collaboration with Athens-Clarke County to reclaim our river. So for 3 very hot, very sweaty days, as we've had in recent weeks, more than 150 Pilgrim's Pride employees cut, pulled, and dragged invasive plant material, old tires, and trash out of the woods. And their efforts gave native habitat a chance to regenerate while decreasing erosion, improving river quality, and once again returning an incredible natural resource, our Oconee River, to something closer to its natural state. As Athens works to transform its degraded urban forests into high-quality habitat, Pilgrim's employees have advanced the effort by years. So more than 150 Pilgrims employees donated more than 3,150 hours to the project. And just to give you an idea about some of the metrics around their accomplishments, they removed 32 plus tons of invasive plant material, found 30 tires along our riverway, and collected 36 bags of trash. And so, along with collaboration from our leisure services and sustainability offices, I want to thank Pilgrim's Pride, and we have a plaque we would like to present them. So if I could have several employees come forward, and I'm going to apologize in advance if I butcher any names, but Siandra Lee, Jarlo Barr, Keith Rudowski, Ashley Hall, and Paige Rashut are here from Pilgrim. So if they, as well as Mike from our sustainability office, could come forward, I'd like to present this to the Pilgrim staff. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Charles, good to see you, sir. Thank you. Thanks for your work.
Thank you so much.
Come on. And we have Rose West and Alex Bond here as well. All right. Great work. We can't appreciate it. And it was hot. I stopped twice to have conversations with some of the Pilgrim's employees, and I asked specifically, is it hotter in the shop or is it hotter out here? And it was much hotter on that riverbank. So we appreciate the efforts. Thanks all, and to staff members who helped facilitate as well. Thank you all, everyone. All right, so moving on to our agenda, I want to note that there are several opportunities for citizen input. There's going to be opportunity on our consent agenda, opportunity on old and new business, and then individual opportunities under our planning and zoning items, as well as a general opportunity for input at the end of the meeting on any item that is not on our agenda. So beginning with citizen input on the consent agenda, which are items number 1 through 11. If there's any resident who would like to provide input, you have 3 minutes, and as you step up to the mic, just give us your name and address. And if you have 30 seconds left, you're going to see the light in front of Clerk Spratlin turn yellow. When your time is up, that light is going to turn red. So any input at all on our consent agenda? Again, items number 1 through 11. All right, seeing the deadness of silence, I will ask my colleagues here on the commission, would any commissioner like to remove an item from the consent agenda for discussion? All right, Commissioner
Yeah, I have
Wright?
some positive things to say about number 3.
All right, number 3, Commissioner Wright. Any other item? All right, so having removed item 3 and provided the opportunity for public input, I would entertain.
For approval. Second.
All right, we've got a motion from Commissioner Neesmith, a second from Commissioner Harrod for approval of items 1, 2, and 4 through 11. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the consent agenda is approved. We now are going to move to citizen input on old and new business. So those are items number 3 and then 12 through 18. All right, come on up. Good to see you.
Good evening. My name is Nat Kirkendall, and I live at 108 River Bottom Circle here in Athens, and I'm here on behalf of the Oconee Rivers Greenway Commission. Our commission, of course, is charged with advising you all on aspects of the greenway management and development. And as you know, the 4-mile Cooks Trail has had a special place in the hearts and minds of Athens-Clarke County citizens for over 30 years. It's a beautiful setting for family outings and walkers, trail runners, birders, and others. And it was also a number 1 priority in the Greenway Network Plan that was approved year before last. The trail, however, is currently closed to public use because of extensive damage from deep and persistent flooding that's happened over the past year. Recently, our commission voted unanimously to advise you that restoring and reopening Cooks Trail should be a high priority for Athens-Clarke County Unified Government, and we encourage ACC to assess the damage to the trail and to consider relocating parts that are very vulnerable. This relates to your agenda today under item number 14, and that has to do with park facilities. SPLOST 11, Project 16, Subproject 22, calls for an engineering study of the corridor for Cook's Trail in order to assess it and to come up with an approach for improving the trail as well as putting it back together again. And we wholeheartedly endorse that. So we just want to pass that on to you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kirkendall. All right, any other citizen input on new business? Again, that's item number 3 as well as 12 through 16. All right, seeing none, we'll come behind the rail. We're going to begin with item number 3, which regards a Carriage Lane culvert replacement, preliminary construction plans. Commissioner Wright asked that this be
yeah.
removed from the
Yeah, I
consent
missed
agenda.
it. I wanted to make some positive comments on how the idea of combining the Barnett Shoals sidewalk completion with this culvert, I missed saying that at the agenda setting, so when I saw it, I wanted to make sure that we had a chance to point out that at Barnett Shoals, it was, when the sidewalk's completed, will be, I believe, our first complete street. It'll have sidewalks on both sides. And I really appreciate that staff did more than just a sidewalk evaluation, and they've added a pedestrian crosswalk with refuge, and there'll be plantings in that once we decide what plantings look like. And that's helping the bus stop across the street from the convenience store at the end of Carriage Lane, which is a lot of multifamily or apartment complexes that are there, so that's going to be a safety improvement. And then I also, that's the sidewalk part, and then I was hoping that the manager could speak to the culvert, because this is a perfect example of our stormwater funding projects, and I wanted the manager to have a moment, because we all have to explain what's going on with the stormwater, and then I thought this would be a good opportunity with that funding in this project.
Great.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Commissioner. Yes, so the stormwater utility funds primarily maintenance and inspections of the system. But we have been able to accumulate some funds, which allows us to do some capital projects. And we've talked about the need for additional capital funding. Just today, we were with Commissioner Edwards looking at some undersized pipe in the neighborhood. And I think, folks, you can't see that infrastructure, but it's all so important. In this case, if that culvert failed catastrophically, and we've been watching it, so our staff inspects them, and we've seen it deteriorate, and it's getting to a point now where it would cut off access for the residents of Clark Garden Apartments and the other dwellings off Carriage Lane. And so I want to make that point that these funds are necessary to maintain this very critical infrastructure. The other thing I wanted to do was, while I had the moment, call out how our staff is really working well together with efficiency. And I do want to note, Kent Kilpatrick, our SPLOST staff, Derek Doster and Keith Sanders, Drew Ressler, who has recently left us, and Frank Stevens have all really tried to be as efficient as we can to try to save money. I'll point to that section of Greenway over there near the UGA park and ride. We bundled that together, replacing the sewer line, and the contractor did the sidewalk, and we saved a couple $100,000. In this case, doing the sidewalk gap project in conjunction with the culvert replacement, it aided easement acquisition, because you have to get an easement for a specific purpose. So rather than go back twice, we went once. And we believe that if we bid this together, that, again, we'll see savings there as well. So I want to hats off to staff for helping to find those efficiencies. One other one I'll note, just showing how well things are working, you notice the replacement of the sewer in Lumpkin. Well, staff had gotten together, when's it due for repaving? Well, it's coming up. Well, let's go ahead and knock that out so we're not sawing up perfectly good asphalt. So that type of work's going on every single day. Thanks for the opportunity.
I'll make a motion that we that we approve item number 3.
A second.
All right, we've got a motion from Commissioner Wright, a second from Commissioner Parker. I think this adjoins your districts, actually. And so, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, all opposed? All right, number 3 is approved. All right, moving on to old business. Item number 12 are resolutions with respect to SPLOST 2020. For the benefit of folks here in the chamber or listening tonight, We finalized the project list, and this simply seals the intergovernmental agreements that we need to have with the communities of Bogart and Winterville, and then moves this forward onto the ballot as we have a deadline to get this to the Board of Elections for that purpose. So any input on this item from commissioners? Entertain a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have a motion to move this forward from Commissioner Wright, a second from Commissioner Harrod. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, moving forward with the SPLOST referendum. All right, number 13 is award of a 5-year contract for the construction of heavy-duty transit buses. Commissioner Denson?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I pulled this one off of consent just because I had some questions about the contract here, and if we were at this time able to move on to purchasing electric buses, as we've now taken this 100% renewable energy resolution. I thank staff, transit staff especially, for reaching out to me and talking to me, and like now learning though that at this time we don't have electric buses available to us that have the capacity, the range of exceeding 275 miles a day. But hoping that we'll have that moving forward soon. And so I hope that we can actually make sure that transit and our sustainability office can work together to we have a plan to go ahead and start moving on to electric buses and transitioning there. And I hope we can have that plan in the next few years so that we don't have to renew another contract here in 5 years. Again, with hybrid buses getting us kind of stuck with the hybrid model because our goal is to move to renewable energy by 2035. So I want to make sure that we're focused on that and doing that there, especially because I was looking at the purchases for the last couple months. In May and June alone, the transit department, $91,000 in fuel that we spent. So this is cost savings that we'll see immediately, plus the environmental savings. But at this time, I'm definitely happy to support this, especially because while we're not getting electric buses right now, we're getting some nice hybrid buses that are fantastic. So I'll go ahead and make a motion for us to pass this.
Second.
All right, I have a motion from Commissioner Denson, second from Commissioner Neesmith. Any further discussion? I'll make a brief note that I've followed up on this question with a couple of colleague mayors in other communities, and some had indicated that they'd actually purchased some fully electric vehicles that they then had to send back because just given the topography in those communities that they just didn't provide the functionality necessary. I think as we've seen with emerging technology, new things are coming out every year around storage, around battery capacity. So my hope is that certainly well within the time frame of this 5-year contract, there's a great new model that's going to be fully electric for us. So a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, moving forward to item number 14, park facilities improvements. The agenda item notes that there have been lots of evaluations done and kind of settles on a couple of projects, notably Bear Creek and an assessment of Cook's Trail. Any conversation about this item? I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we approve option 1, A, B, C, D, E.
I second.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Wright, a second from Commissioner Davenport. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're going to go do some good park work. All right, moving on to item number 15, which is parking deck equipment purchase, given the aging nature of some of our infrastructure that just makes the deck facilities function. Commissioner Hamby?
Sure, I'll go ahead and make a quick motion, but first I wanted to mention the money, where this is coming from, and I just want you all to know, under 6A, while it says it's coming out of general fund, that's true, but what's coming out of general fund is the part that comes from the parking revenue that's generated from all of our parking decks and our parking meters. And and early on, I think it was an FY17, Mayor, if I'm not mistaken, that we decided, I think it was right shortly after we took on the payments for the new parking deck, that we decided all parking should be coming out of parking revenues. And so we do have a component of that goes, of course, to the general fund. No longer does it come out of the hotel motel tax fund like it used to. So from that standpoint, I just wanted to make clear that this is supported by parking and not from general fund. Y'all know what I'm saying. So anyway, I'll make the motion to approve.
All right, got a motion from Commissioner Hamby, second from Commissioner Parker. Any other discussion? I'd also note that, I think really along the lines of what Commissioner Hamby pointed out, that this more effective set of mechanisms for operating the parking decks are going to mean that we realize more revenue because we're not losing revenue because of lost tickets and the like.
That's a good point.
So,
Yes, exactly.
So I think this is going to benefit us on the revenue front, even though we're having to spend a little
It'll
bit of
pay for
money.
itself at the end of the day.
It will pay for itself. That's right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving forward on to item number 16, a resolution for sister cityhood with Cortona, Italy. Commissioner Wright, if you wouldn't mind providing some context for this.
Like I mentioned this at the agenda setting, but now you can read through the details that came together, and the director, Chris Robinson, helped update what we had from, I think, 1976 in Athens City, and so now we're updating it in celebration and honoring the 50th year of the studies abroad program that's there in the exchange. And with you being the new mayor here and them having a new mayor, this is a nice way to continue for the next 50 years, we hope.
And they're funding travel, is that what you're saying?
This is just an honor to speak to it.
We will accept the honor, and should the travel materialize someday, we'd be
There
okay
you
with
go.
that, too.
But she went.
On my own dime, yeah, yeah. And so I make a motion that we accept, that we approve this resolution to move forward.
I'll second.
Commissioner Harry?
I have one, I have no problem with this. I intend to support it. I have one minor little issue. Can we take the gendered language out of this when it describes Cortona as her?
You repeat this one.
So, I'm sorry, I missed what
It
you.
says, whereas on June 6, 1978, the City of Athens instituted a sister-city relationship with Cortona, describing her as a small, quiet, walled town. Can we just change that, so?
Commissioner Hurd, does that mean we have to change sister to something else?
No.
Well, then,
Well, we can do if you want to, but.
Whatever wording works, that part was from the original document. The rest was more updated, but she can be removed, describing
It.
the town.
So we
the
would
city.
replace
The
the
town,
word
yeah.
"she" when referring to the city as "it."
We can make it,
that's so.
I'm not married I'm not married to any of this terminology. Whatever works for everybody is good for me.
Professor?
I take the professor's update
All right, so.
as an amendment.
Amendment to the motion. Does the seconder accept the amendment to the motion?
Yeah.
All right. All right, for the purpose of comedy, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
This is what happens when you read these agenda items. Sorry.
Our sisterhood continues.
Sister Jen.
I need to request a motion for suspension of rules.
Second, a motion to suspend the rules.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Davenport, a second from Commissioner Denson for suspension of rules. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're moving forward under suspension of rules with new business. New item number 21, a request from Commissioner Edwards for creation of expansion of the Urban Services District for solid waste collection to the single-family portion of Riverbend Parkway. We've got a long-standing protocol within the government that if there's an interest in expanding a service district, that has to either be initiated by a set of 60 or more homeowners or the commissioner, and we have both of those. This would be the first of several stages that would be followed. This would just be acceptance of this request. It would be followed by staff analysis and a staff report, and then a further commission decision at a later meeting. Commissioner Edwards, you may want to elucidate a little bit more of that.
Last winter, about dusk in my district, a gentleman named Louis Shropshire was struck and killed by a car while walking down the street. Subsequent to that, if y'all remember, we had allocated some budget funds for pedestrian safety in that district. And I look at this reform as concurrent with that one, as a system of initiatives that I've been working for months to put in place with the able assistance and input of residents in that area. They cite numerous concerns for why they would like to cut down on the number of trucks that travel on this curvy road with blind spots everywhere, very steep topography as well. So I'd like to thank staff for assisting me in putting together this proposal that hinges on a policy developed around unification that will respond to these constituents' desires in my district to create a safer corridor for pedestrians in an area where there are no sidewalks or safe areas to walk. This is a small piece that we can do. Respond to the will of the constituents by providing a service. These are constituents coming forward in a concerted effort, a clear majority, 68%, responding that they would like this service to be provided. They want the city to act and expand solid waste services into this area. Staff agrees that this is a valid application and that it can work in this situation. Urban services and solid waste collection occurs immediately adjacent to this area. So as the mayor highlighted, this is the beginning of a process. Tonight, we will vote to accept whether or not my application is valid. I do believe it is, and I would appreciate the support of my colleagues. Once this application is accepted as valid, we will have a report come from the manager detailing how the expanded service will affect service delivery in general. Next, a public hearing will be held. And finally, if the commission finds that expanding the area is in the best interest of the residents of the proposed area and citizens of Athens, then we may pass an ordinance providing solid waste collection to the proposed area. That being said, I'll move that we please accept my application. Oh, maybe I shouldn't move, maybe somebody else. I issued the application.
Well, I'll move it then.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All right.
All right, I've got a motion from Commissioner Neesmith, a second from Commissioner Denson. I'm sitting here and I'm kind of recognizing that I think in the earlier call for public input, it wasn't evident that there was call for public input on this item. So I do want to provide opportunity for public input on item number 21.
Sorry, I'm not as wonky as I should be. I didn't realize it was time to speak.
We aren't either.
Neither do we.
I want to thank the Commission for considering the application for extension of urban services, specifically solid waste and recyclable pickup, to the River Oaks community. And I hope the Commission will indulge this absurd T-shirt, along with the shout out to the extremely indomitable Brainiac Squad, which is a group of youngsters that undertook to solve this problem a decade ago. This was part of the first LEGO League, which is a worldwide robotics competition, which has a theme every year. And this particular year, 2009, the theme was transportation, and our team chose to transport trash. Don't ask me why. 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old kids will pick the strangest things. But they dubbed this the tremendously tricky trash traffic trouble. I would go into the details of that, but I only have a few minutes, so I'm going to move on to the subject at hand. With your help, we will continue to improve pedestrian safety along Riverbend Parkway and at the same time cut road maintenance costs and fulfill a promise that was made way back when the city and the county consolidated. Currently, River Oaks is served by 4 different trash providers. There was 5 at this time. This means that there are 8 trucks roaring through our neighborhood and the multifamily portion of the parkway. The 8 apartment complexes on that end of the road, it's worth noting, are serviced by dumpster trucks, while the single-family home section of the parkway is serviced by trucks designed for curbside pickup. So doing the math, that's 8 trucks churning through the first half of the parkway, serving no one. And since there's only one entrance, it becomes a round trip. That means 16 passes of trucks weighing as much as 56,000 pounds each, and each getting about 2.8 miles per gallon. Thank you, extremely indomitable Brainiac Squad, for those numbers. That's a lot of waste for a little bit of waste. That's exponential waste. So turning to the single-family home community that is River Oaks, when a provider has a string of closely spaced clients, the trucks move through slowly and methodically, stopping at each house. But when a provider has widely dispersed customers, and in one case, one provider has a single customer, the drivers are incentivized to move through the neighborhood expediently. Let's just be tame and just call it expediently. So the problem, left one part out. It's also worth noting that our providers come on 3 different days, so trash containers dot the landscape all week long. That's not a big deal, but we can do better. So the problems are obvious: pedestrian safety issues, road damage, and the costs associated. And we have noise and air pollution, carbon emissions, all in excess.
Thank you for coming forward.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I'm out of time?
Yes. Thank
Okay,
you,
well,
sir.
thank you very much for your time and your
Let me
consideration.
get your name again, sir.
Stephen Kozlowski. I beg
Stephen
your pardon.
Kozlowski. Thank you.
Yes, thank
I appreciate Mr. Kozlowski. Would anyone else like to speak to item number 21? All right, coming back again behind the rail for any further discussion.
I just want to applaud this idea. I had no idea that there was a policy that could come forward and have our unified government solid waste service instead of the private haulers, which are, as he summarized quite well, problematic. I think that it's interesting that we as a government require trash recycling for businesses and for our apartment complexes, but yet we have areas of our community that it's voluntary whether you have trash pickup, much less recycling. So I look forward to this moving forward in our community, learning that this is possible and that it could motivate other clusters and neighborhoods to also move forward with this idea. And so I look forward to the start and the finish of this process, and I support it.
Commissioner Davenport.
Yes, I really appreciate the staff and Commissioner Edwards for their hard work. And I hate being that stick in the mud, but I would like to motion to put this on hold because one of the whereas is the mayor and commissioners have investigated Commissioner Edwards' application to determine that it's valid. I know I have not had time to review his application and to do my investigation. It is not against the people of Riverbend Road. They have a valid concern that I 100% agree with the gentleman's statement. But the second part of the situation is the fact that a lot of us in our communities want the same thing, and I think we need to take a holistic approach at this instead of taking a singular approach. And when it comes to citywide trash pickup, and plus we got our wonderful Suki, who's in charge of sanitation, who's doing an excellent survey to the community and try to get public input to provide a more broad census of the folks in our community of what they want to do with when it comes to trash pickup. And I would just like to wait, at least wait till we investigate further, and at least wait till the trash study is done, so we can get a better view of what trash pickup looks like throughout our community, instead of taking a singular approach to just this one community. Because I know, I'm quite positive, I got 3 phone calls from 3 different communities in my district who like, hey, why don't you do the same thing? And I would hate to have a piecemeal special an urban district that is not holistic to other communities or other people within Clarke County. And That's it.
Commissioner Neesmith.
Yes, what's been described here is a problem, with the exception of the apartment buildings. It's a problem that all of the suburban districts have, all of them. I have Ford haulers in my neighborhood. I don't have dumpsters because I don't have an apartment building. And we are probably going to look at options on changing our trash hauling strategy, which may include zones, so that our franchised haulers are assigned to specific zones so that there's only one truck going to a neighborhood. Opening the door up, I'm going to support this, only because it's a little unique with the apartment buildings there. But the fact is that we need to take a holistic approach. And we are, in this case, we're putting some haulers, taking business away from them, which concerns me. I think the zones are an excellent way to approach this. I'm concerned about zones and how we're going to regulate pricing, because that becomes a monopoly in the zone. I would have to solve that problem, so we may have to set rates. Just jumping ahead of myself here. But yeah, I agree. I hope we can come up with a holistic approach very soon, because we've got some haulers that just aren't, they're just not doing the work. They're just failing week by week by week. So anyway, yeah.
Commissioner Denson.
Thank you, Mayor. I hear Commissioner Davenport's concerns, because I think most of us who have a considerable amount of our districts outside of the urban service district, we have been hearing this a lot. But to the concern that this is a piecemeal approach, I mean, this policy is specifically designed and intended to be a piecemeal approach. I mean, that is the actual point of this, so that whenever we have a neighborhood with specific situations, such as this, that we can create a special service area for them. That's why it's special, so that we can do this. And I mean, I actually appreciate Commissioner Edwards for doing this, because I've also had many concerns recently in my district, in which people are actually asking about how we can move forward with this. So I'm glad that Commissioner Edwards is kind of going in there and figuring out how this works, since this hasn't been done in a long time, if ever. Yeah. So I appreciate him moving forward, and staff moving forward and figuring out how this works, so that the people in my district and other districts, including possibly Commissioner Davenport's, will already have a way for this to run smoothly and figure out, and we can do it ourselves in our own districts if needed.
Commissioner Hamby?
Sure, thank you. And I do support exactly what Commissioner Denson was talking about. I do have a question, though. So if other commission districts or commissioners want this to happen in their district, is our solid waste prepared to make that happen?
In this case, Riverbend is a...
No, I'm not talking about in this case. This case is fine. I'm fine with this case.
Right, we've got the capacity with current staff and equipment to handle that. But should we go into other neighborhoods, there's going to come a point where we're going to have to add, it's going to add cost.
Okay, and so, and I don't mind setting the precedent, because I think that's fine to do that, but I'd like to know what those costs are going to be. Certainly Commissioner Davenport and Commissioner Denson, everybody's talked about some neighborhood in their district that would like to be the 60%, or, action by the CEO and commission. So it sounds like an individual commissioner can just bring it forward if we wanted to, from that standpoint. So I guess I'm asking for what the total cost would be for countywide pickup service. I mean, so that we aren't doing it piecemeal like this, because I know the cost is going to be high, but it's going to be high if we're doing it piecemeal like this as well.
Could be wrong, but I think that's being presented to us at the work session coming up.
Manager, I was going to ask, just for, and I don't have the work session schedule in front of me, can you talk about when that solid waste work session is happening?
I think it's coming up the next week.
Is it, okay.
I
it's
think.
August.
We're doing landfill. I know, we met with Suki just today, and she didn't have the other presentation with us, but I think that's coming up next month. I'll clarify with all of you. But I think the idea of, like Commissioner Neesmith said, was to look at various delivery models, which could include zoning, creating zones, doing RFPs, having one hauler, because we've had these complaints about multiple haulers in neighborhoods. Yes, next week. We're going
Okay,
to talk
excellent.
about solid waste.
The August work session, a week from tonight, in the chambers here.
Guess I'll be there.
Commissioner Thornton?
I'm going to wait until, I support the idea and I think it's great, but I'm also going to wait until I get the report from the community input from Suki. I think if this is a good idea now, it will be a good idea later. I am concerned that, for me, I just didn't know this conversation was going on, so I'm not prepared, and I don't feel that comfortable with, because if we try to do this for the full community, and God knows I want it in my district, I really do, but I would like to see what the dollar amount would possibly be. I don't want to open Pandora's box, and we've got to pull from somewhere else to pay for it. So I would like to see the results from the Solid Waste Committee. And while we're on this whole solid waste thing, I need to put a plug in for Waste Pro that is out on the Danielsville Highway. I understand residents had complained a lot about that dump spot. Noise in the middle of the night, odor, and I thought I was going to be able to work my way to it with everything going on, but that's another issue that I would like to explore about that whole area there where they're transferring.
That side on the left as one drives north.
Yeah, and it's in a residential neighborhood. And so since we're having this conversation, I hope somebody can help me know more about that, because that is a concern in my district. So much I want to say about this one, but
Definitely recommend coordinating with solid waste and CPD or code enforcement as
and
well.
code enforcement, but also it may need a zoning. I don't know if what the zoning is for that place to be there. So
I think we can get that information for
we
you.
need to look at that. And it bothers me because it says Waste Pro, but I understand now it was bought out by Republic, and that is the same group that all of you are having problems with, and plus in Atlanta. So I have a problem when we have these businesses that are not doing a good job and making money off of our residents. So while we're talking about stuff like this, I would like for us to look at Waste Pro and give me some feedback.
And I think that work session next Tuesday will be fertile ground for some of that conversation.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a point of order,
Commissioner Neesmith, point of order.
which is what we're discussing here is merely accepting Russell's application. We're not voting to do this. We'll be voting to do this after the process proceeds, where we start seeing the costs and the recommendations from staff. I don't see any harm whatsoever in accepting his application. In fact, I think we might be wrong because it's been reviewed, it's proper, and I think we should vote to accept it.
No, Commissioner Harrod indicated interest in speaking, and I hadn't heard from him yet.
Well, thank you. Basically, Commissioner Neesmith said what I was going to say, which is I think we can do two things at the same time. We can accept this, but we don't actually approve anything until months from now, after we've had a much larger discussion about trash hauling. I do agree that we should not approach trash hauling in the county on a piecemeal basis. As somebody that represents the General Services District, I have some concerns about, and this is preempting our further discussions, I have some concerns about zoning, franchise zoning. You're removing people's choice. You do create a monopoly, as Commissioner Neesmith mentioned. In terms of the last time we discussed this, I think I'm the only commissioner, with the exception of the mayor, who was in office at the time. and you want to have a whole string of people coming down to City Hall, you start messing about with their trash pickup. In terms of the cost, though, if we were to expand solid waste out across the entire county, the residents pick up the cost of that because it's a enterprise.
Enterprise funds, so
It's not-
ratepayers.
It's not paid out of people's property taxes. So I think that's really important for people to understand. A lot of people think that the trash pickup in the old city limits is paid for with property taxes. It is not. People that live in the old city limits in the urban services district
on the water bill.
pay an additional fee for that service.
Commissioner Davenport?
Yeah, so I understand the sentiment from Commissioner Neesmith and Commissioner Harrod. I still like to put it on hold because if we go through with this process and if everyone else wants to do something in our neighborhood in their district, the process start over again. And I would rather do a holistic approach since we're having a meeting next Tuesday with solid waste. You know, what is wrong with putting this on hold? But you know, I'd rather take a bigger approach with this process because I know there are a lot of people in my district, and I would hate to go through this process again. And I'm just asking for inclusion. We can't talk about equity. Can't run on a campaign for equity. We're just solely focused on one neighborhood when we know there's issues in other neighborhoods. Plus, we have a committee, solid waste committee, that we have that Commissioner Harrod and I sit on that addresses these things. And that's what, you know, the Honorable Suki, she's trying to do. And I would just prefer that we put it on hold, but I can count votes and I understand that, you know, my fellow commissioners want to move this forward, but I just caution down the road next year when other commissioners are saying the same thing, we have to go through this process again versus doing it all together. That's just me.
Any other further input? All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Neesmith and a second from Commissioner Denson on the floor. Jean, could you call the roll, please?
Neesmith,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Harrod,
Yes.
Thornton,
No.
Hamby,
Yes.
Davenport,
No?
Parker,
No.
Wright,
Yes.
Denson,
Yes.
6 yes, 3 no.
All right, motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to reconsider, not that one, but the number 16. The resolution for Cortona.
All right, we have a motion for reconsideration. Is there a second?
Let me explain why. If we're going to non-genderize this, then I'm going to make a motion that we change sister city to another term that's used nationally, twin town. And that's what I'm going to ask for if we reconsider.
All right, do I hear a second?
I second.
All right, we have a second, so conversation will continue. Commissioner Wright?
I thought that the term was just to take out, so it would say sister city relationship with Cortona, describing Cortona as a small, quiet, walled town. Culturally, that is a huge difference. Just wanted to say that. And there's also a marble engraved plaque that has been there for a long time that already says that we're a sister city. And I think that we're trying to make our relationship together better and not stickier. And so I think if we left it as is, it would continue to be a good relationship.
A marble plaque changes everything. A marble plaque changes everything. I'll withdraw my motion.
I appreciate that.
Well, if they want to be part of the family,
You've got to be part of the family.
All families have sticky issues.
All right, so motion was withdrawn. Any other reconsideration items? All right, we are going to move on to public hearings on planning and zoning items, of which we have 2 this evening. The first of which is a request from Bet Nave and Studio B&A Architects for Mathis Apartments Incorporated regarding 3.242 acres from 1510 to 1550 South Lumpkin Street. Rules of public input on planning and zoning items provide the opportunity for a 10-minute period of time from any person who's a proponent or opponent. And we do have a 10-minute input request from Druid Lambdy. And so I'd like to request Druid Lambdy come forward with opposition input. David, I'm sorry. David Lundy, okay.
And I live at 230 Marion Drive, and I'm a past resident of the Mathis apartment complex, as were my parents. Now, this plan has changed very little from the original plan, and that was turned down originally by the Planning Commission. And that's disappointing. They really could be a lot better. This is a historic complex. It was designed and built 80 years ago. The courtyards must be considered as part of the historic original concept. They need to be grandfathered in to whatever changes are to be considered. The current proposal fills one of the courtyards with parking. This is an abuse of the significantly historic part of this complex. Now, I have a suggestion and a possible solution to this. This proposal does not include any amenities for the people who live in these apartments. By converting the proposed offices into rooms for games, workouts, birthday parties, coin laundry, meeting situations for the residents, and including an outdoor patio adjacent for sitting outside, for cookouts, and activities connected to the interior space. And this would be especially nice if it were shared with the restaurant kitchen that's proposed. The quality of life in this complex would be greatly improved and made more attractive for potential tenants. I think any loss of revenue from the two offices that are shown would be easily offset by the additional attraction of this complex with these amenities in setting the rates for renting an apartment. These spaces would only be used by the residents. They'd be keyed so that they were the only ones who could use it. And no parking then would be required for them because it'd be an easy walk to these spaces from all of these apartments. The courtyard would not only be saved, but could be made into a landscaped garden court. Please do not allow this historic courtyard to be made into a parking lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lundy. Any other public input on item number 17, 1510 to 1550 South Lumpkin Street? Please provide your name and address, sir.
Hey, I'm Michael Earl. I live at 193 Mel Street, which is within 400 feet of the proposed redevelopment. And wanted to come and say that I support the development. Initially had concerns about it, specifically as it relates, sorry, I just walked in from upstairs, specifically as it relates to the congestion and traffic and the additional bedrooms at that location. Rutherford Street, that runs adjacent to the property, is highly congested, a lot of cut-through traffic. And the area adjacent to the proposed redevelopment is a residential area, historic neighborhood. But spent a lot of time working with the developer, looking at the proposed plans and going over everything. And really, I don't think that the proposed redevelopment will impact traffic significantly relative to what's already there. And I think probably the majority of the traffic, it was an existing issue before the project would be redeveloped. So, in light of that, and considering that the purchaser has offered voluntarily to sponsor and fund a traffic study of the area for the benefit of the neighborhood and the residents as a gesture of goodwill has made me really reconsider, and I think that it proves that they will be good stewards of the property. I like the plans that they've proposed. I've always liked the look of what they're trying to do. I think the property needs to be revitalized, and it's within the scope of what the Clarke County has proposed for the long-range redevelopment of that corridor. So I think that, in conclusion, I think that that the development company will be a good neighbor. I think they've made a good faith effort to show it that. I think the project that they're proposing is attractive. I think it's an improvement to what's there. And so I just, and I brought with me a copy of an escrow agreement that proves that the developer has put money that's necessary for the traffic study into an escrow account at Forts and Bentley. So they've put money behind their promise to be good neighbors. So just in conclusion, I want to say I do support the project, and that's, we live in that neighborhood because we like to see walkable amenities, and I think this will add to that appeal.
Thank you, Mr. Earl.
Okay, thanks.
Any other input on Lumpkin Street? All right, this is in District 7. Commissioner Edwards.
This project has been in front of us a few times now, and I think the staff, our staff, planning staff, has done a great job working with the developer, and the developer in turn has done a great job working with the surrounding neighborhood, which at first, as Mr. Earl alluded to, was pretty apprehensive and wary about the scale of this development. But the collaborative nature of what has happened in this case, I think, has resulted in what's going to turn out to be a very nice renovation and construction of some new buildings here right in the urban core of Five Points. It's a goal and objective of this body to encourage denser development in urban nodes where services can be more efficiently provided to our citizens. I think the architect here has done a great job with the drawings, and I support this project. I move to approve.
I second.
All right, got a motion on the floor from Commissioner Edwards, a second from Commissioner Davenport. Thank you. Any further input, commissioners? All right, all in favor? Read the ordinance. Thank you. I appreciate it, Attorney.
An ordinance to amend the Code of Athens-Clarke County, Georgia, with respect to rezoning two parcels of land comprising approximately 3.242 acres in total, located at 1510, 1550 South Lumpkin Street, from CO Commercial Office to RM2 PD Mixed Density Residential Plan Development, and for other purposes.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Request is approved. All right, we're moving forward to the Atlanta Highway and Lexington Road corridor studies that we discussed in a work session recently.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion? Commissioner Parker.
I'd like to make a few quick comments. I'm supportive. I think there's a lot to be excited about, particularly in the Lexington corridor. Recommendations, things like queue jumping for the buses so that we can have more efficient transit services, transfer hub so that it's easier to transfer between buses, full sidewalks, coordinated traffic signals, slower speeds along a part of town, which I myself have tried to cross on foot and definitely almost got taken out a time or two. And I think there's really great opportunities for us to partner with local youth-serving organizations on some of these beautification projects and the pedestrian islands and the tree plantings to both beautify an area, give it a sense of place, while also creating jobs for young people. And I With that being said, just want to, as we move forward, we're looking at these recommendations and how we want to roll them out. Remember to put function first, because, you need to make sure this part of the town is serving people's basic needs before we get into, the stuff that makes it feel nicer, in my opinion. And I think that there's time for all that kind of discussion as we go along. And in the general scheme, these recommendations to town, I look forward to supporting them.
Commissioner Thornton.
Since we had our first corridor meeting last, whatever day it was, I hope that we don't have two corridor agendas going on. I hope that this melts into, because we did not discuss this at all.
No.
And I do not think that we should have two different things going on simultaneously that are the same thing.
No, and you definitely don't. What you have in the committee that you chair is really the development of a toolbox that could be implemented on not only these corridors, but any throughout the county.
My point is that I would have liked to have had this on our agenda if it was nothing more than information. I think Jerry was out of town, but we did select to have him to serve as ex officio, and I'm sure we'll get that information in the future. But I do think that the committee, if nothing else, needs to have it on the agenda as an agenda item as we roll out so we don't crash. That's my only point.
I think staff could definitely define the intersection between those, no pun intended. So. Commissioner Neesmith?
I'll also say that at least speaking on the side of the Atlanta Highway Corridor study, it is definitely not the do-all, end-all, final word of what needs to be done. In fact, there are some recommendations in here that I could probably never support. So just to say that right out front, this is not the roadmap. There are some recommendations that are very good and I fully support, and there's some recommendations that's going to take a lot of convincing for me to support.
Commissioner Thornton?
Well, I do, and that's one reason we did think it was important for Jerry to be on this committee because of his involvement from the beginning. And I know that Patrick will bring in some valuable information from the Lexington corridor because that's his district. I just, for the committee and any visitors that may come to our meetings, need to know that these things are working together.
Absolutely.
Not all of us thought Jerry was all that important.
Commissioner Edwards. Sorry.
I'll just, I still love this plan. I think parts of it are quite genius, the way that they've routed these proposed multi-use paths through sparsely developed lands. Because I think we all recognize it's very hard to shoehorn multi-use paths into existing residential developments. Here, they're mapping multi-use paths through very sparse, undeveloped land. This presents a great opportunity for this body to go ahead and map out these trails so that development can occur around them. Multi-use paths are a great asset and amenity for our community. They connect residents, create a more vibrant democracy, encourage exercise, allow safe places for children to play and for the elderly to navigate. So I'm very much in favor of this plan. I think it's a great starting point to get some wonderful amenities on the east side.
And just to highlight an exercise that we've gone through as a body in the past, but not since the kind of more newly elected folks, we oftentimes designate future transportation corridors countywide that can then be picked up, should future development happen in those corridors. And so we kind of recognize that. So that may be something that both the Lexington and the Atlanta Highway Group, would wish to do in their work ahead. So, Commissioner Denson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I definitely support this, and there's some, I agree with everybody else's comments that there's some really important, great things here. Definitely the transit transfer station on the west side, which just to be able to service District 5 also, like, which isn't even on the highway, we'd need a western transfer station. So some great stuff here. But I guess I just wanted to, because we've seen this, and I know the public has seen many of these reports come through and get accepted. And I know Commissioner Thornton has talked about this a lot, about like, what are we doing with these? So I wonder if the manager can speak just a little bit of where we're going to go forward now with this, now that we're accepting this, if we have some things lined up or, yeah.
So, as you know, in the approved T-SPLOST, there are projects connected to Atlanta Highway, connected to Lexington Road, connected to Prince Avenue. And with the SPLOST process, we typically have a user group that's been appointed. I know Commissioner Neesmith and Herod have been wanting that to happen. We wanted to get to this point to where we had, something that was informed. And then, so the user groups will convene and begin to sort of sort through some priorities for projects. And then that normal process, those recommendations come to you, you approve the concept, preliminary plans, what have you. And so this will, continue a process that we normally use on SPLOST projects. So we've got the plans, we've got the funding, and now we move forward.
Okay, so the user groups haven't been appointed yet, but the plans that we're moving forward to create those and.
Yeah, no, they have been appointed, and they're meeting within the next week or two.
Okay, great, thank you.
Commissioner Davenport, then Commissioner Wright.
I just want to thank all the people involved with the Connect Athens, former commissioners, and all the people who participated in the public, with the public comment section. At first, I was not too keen to this project, but over time, I've grown to love it. And I'm quite sure Commissioner Herod and Commissioner Parker will love it too for the east side and, of course, the west side people, but the east side. I'm very ecstatic about the fact that it incorporates, and I wish all the constituents on the east side would look at the fact that we are incorporating GDOT construction as well as multi-pass use, as Commissioner Edwards has stated. And that's a benefit for the east side because we don't have that many multi-use paths, and pretty much all we got is Southeast Clarke Park and Satterfield. And now people can be connected from Southeast Clarke Park, where Cornerstone is, to Winterville Road. And the project also includes, suggestions for the airport. So I think it's a wonderful plan, and I know quite sure that 100% of our colleagues will support this.
Commissioner Wright.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear that we're voting to accept this.
Yeah.
Even though it says here, Planning Commission recommends adoption, we are set for the acceptance of it tonight.
And I think the original motion was approval, but if the original motioner could modify that to be phrased accept.
I will, but I want to say something first before.
Well, let me finish my 3 minutes. And so, being on the corridor committee, I wanted to say that as we're learning, this document is part of our learning process, but also at our next meeting, we're going to be getting from staff what funds have already been set aside and to allocate to which areas, so that we understand the funding that's currently there for projects, so that we're also can address funding allocations when that time comes too. But we are at that learning stage, and I want to also say a little bit like what Commissioner Thornton was saying, is to make sure that the mission of each of these committees is clear, so that we are all moving forward in the same direction and we don't collide, I think was maybe a term. But, and so that we all are using efficiently our time as well as the staffs for this great topic. But it's great that it's getting so much attention, and I look forward to putting some of this stuff to work. And what we passed earlier on Barnett Shoals is a glimpse of that, where this is a little bit more concentrated, which is good.
Commissioner Herod, Neesmith, and Hamby.
Thank you. I would just like to say, so as some of you know, I chaired the Lexington Road Study Committee. We've been looking at this for 5 years now.
Yeah.
It started off with a small group of people who are interested in trying to improve the Lexington Road corridor. We had the Urban Land Institute come over from Atlanta and do a study of this corridor. And there was so much, just to remind everybody, there was so much feedback that they actually had to shut down their online feedback website because it couldn't handle all of the feedback that they were getting. They said they'd never seen so much feedback on a single project in any project they had worked on in recent memory. So there's a lot of people who are passionate about the Lexington Road corridor, and certainly it's been a passion of mine for several years now, and I'm just really glad to see. A lot of people say, well, we do all these studies and nothing ever happens. This has been a long time coming, several years, dozens and dozens of meetings, hundreds of people have given their input. The corridor committee itself has worked very hard on this, and as the manager mentioned, there's $4 million in SPLOST for the Lexington Road corridor. There's $4 million also for Atlanta Highway and Prince Avenue. That's certainly not going to allow us to do everything that we would like to do, but it's certainly putting some money where our mouth is, and I'm really glad to see that. I'm really glad to see that we are moving forward with this, and I will be happy to see us accept this and move on.
Commissioner Neesmith?
Yeah, I just want to clarify one thing. The manager said that there was already a task force, a working group for Atlanta Highway. That's not quite true. We asked for volunteers to work on one project, which has made absolutely no progress, and that was for the welcome sign. And that's what that committee's put together with. And so those people who want to be on the committee haven't had the opportunity to know what the scope of it is, because the scope is changing. So we don't have a group yet. I can put one together pretty quick, but we have the Athens West Corridor group, which many of these members would come from. But the interest is going to be much broader than just that welcome sign.
Definitely encourage assembly of that body, because I know there's interest in many of those projects or subcomponents.
Can Jerry work through the corridor committee in assembling that body?
I don't think I need your help.
I think you do.
Yeah, he's got a cohort of folks out there on the Atlanta
That's
Highway.
my problem. He has a cohort. We want to make sure we open this up a little bit.
Well, the cohort's been working on this for what, 6 years?
I know, but there are some people that have not been included, and you and I have talked about this before.
Well, okay, I would be happy to learn
So
about those people. Sure.
no, it's not a learn. You and I have talked about this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pertinent to the agenda
Sure.
item before us, I know Commissioner Hamby had a comment.
Sure, I do, and I'll be glad to accept the acceptance of, the word accept into this proposal. I will say this, and I'm like Commissioner Neesmith, there are some things that would come down through the pike that I may not be supportive of, but I will say that, several years ago, a few years ago, we had the Urban Land Institute. They did it on Lexington Road as well. It's kind of not much difference in this report and the report that they put forward. This report cost us $100,000. That report, I don't think, was very near that much from that standpoint. That was over 6 years ago now. And it kind of makes the similar recommendations, not maybe as specific, but that's something that I think we need to consider as we're moving forward and we start doing these studies, that we need to look at, what's been done in the past and see if we can save some money on this sort of things. Because I will say this, looking at the recommendations here, they mentioned that we have some sort of memo about what our next T-SPLOST projects ought to be for that's come out of this. And that's all well and good, but, it doesn't factor in. It mentions a sidewalk, continuous sidewalk from Mitchell Bridge Road to Tallahassee. To Atlanta Highway, from Atlanta Highway down Mitchell Bridge Road to Tallahassee. I don't disagree with it.
Yeah.
But where's the recommendation for, from Atlanta Highway to 441? On the other side of Atlanta Highway, it gets just as much Atlanta Highway traffic along Timothy is what I'm referring to. Timothy has a little bit of sidewalk, so does Mitchell Bridge. So, when we're looking at things like this, if we're having a group put together a study and that's not in the study, then I'll have an issue with it. I mean, we ought to. That shouldn't have been overlooked like that.
Was in the study area.
Well, I mean, Mitchell Bridge wasn't. I mean, it's part Tallahassee Road goes all the way down there. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So, and I'm not disagreeing with that recommendation, but I'm just saying that let's be careful next time we approve studies like this that we've done in the past that we could work from, and we have staff, smart staff, that could help us develop a SPLOST list of recommendations like this that encompass a lot of needs. So it's just a recommendation. I'm not going to make too big a deal about it, and I'll approve to accept it. But I just wanted to point those things out. The other thing I wanted to point out too about the multi-use pass that Commissioner Edwards brought up, and I'll go through this with a better eye as I'm looking at it. The multi-use pass, I agree with the multi-use pass, but one of the statements you made in there was this will encourage development. What I'd like for us to do is to use the multi-use pass to encourage redevelopment. I don't think we need to. If we're trying to redo a corridor, let's redo a corridor and look at the development that's there now, and make sure that gets fixed before we start approving new zoning and new corridors that could come about. So especially as it regards to these corridors that we're trying to fix up. So appreciate that.
Commissioner Thornton?
I definitely support the plan, and I'm going to have to get caught up and where other commissioners are at. And my only point is that no matter what plan we have, if we have to go out of our way to make sure we got different voices and different groups of people, we need to do that. That was my only point when I was saying about being, so it wasn't an issue about the quote. That word just kind of bothered me a little bit. But we need to make sure we go out of our way, that folk don't wake up and see something new and they did not have an opportunity to participate. That was my gist.
All right, we have a motion to accept these reports. A second? Any further?
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Hamby, second from Commissioner Davenport. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, reports are accepted. All right, now is that time in the evening when we receive citizen input from items not on tonight's agenda. As with earlier, you will have 3 minutes. Please provide your name and address. When you have 30 seconds remaining in your time, the light will turn yellow, and when your 3 minutes are up, it turns to red. Good evening.
Yes, my name is Dennis Holmes, and I reside at 1965 Winterville Road, Lot 2. And I just want to ask each and every last one of y'all individuals that sat up here behind this round table, what type of human beings are y'all? What type? Y'all people actually have the audacity to look me in my face and tell me that, hey, I'm crazy. That y'all don't have no recollection or nothing that the accusation that I've been bringing forth. The same way I brought it to your attention to when we was coming in, Mr. Dixon. The same way. Hey, but listen, I'm gonna tell each and every last one of y'all something. I'm 58 years old. I'm 4 steps away from being a senior citizen. Hey, but all my life of existence here on this earth, I have never ever met an individual that had the audacity to call me crazy. Not in front of my back, not behind my back either. I mean, not in front of my face, nor behind my back. Until I met y'all. Hey, now y'all people need to stand up and do the right thing, because y'all individuals know y'all know that everything that I've written to y'all on the letters, every time I come down here and speak, y'all know I'm telling the truth. Y'all know it. You know it. Hey, but why do y'all continue to allow yourself to dehumanize a person? Why? What fun are you getting out of it? What? If I die tomorrow, then what? You can exalt. Well, he dead. We don't have to worry about it no more. That's over with. Is that what you're looking for? A possibility you might get it. But I guarantee you, if I don't die, if I'm still living, next month, this time, you'll see me again. And you're gonna continue to see me until y'all decide to do the right thing. And Ms. Parker, I wanna ask you one thing. You represent the Winterville Road District, right? Why is it so hard for an individual to find peace in his own home? Why is it? Last night, and I'm gonna ask y'all something. Does this sound familiar? People in the background hollering, Mr. Holmes, you gonna get your money. Not via telephone, but you gonna get your money. But guess what? It wasn't that type of call last night.
Mr. Holmes, I appreciate you coming down
There was
tonight.
some individual on the phone that was calling me a nigger.
Hello. My name is Stephen Kramer. I live at 140 Arch Street. I'm the founder and executive of the nonprofit Brain Aid Fest. Some of you know me. Because of time constraints, I'm going to be reading this verbatim, so any awkward pauses were planned. As some of you know, as the mayor knows, well, first of all, it sounds like trash and recycling is an important issue, which I like to hear. I haven't attended very many of these meetings. But on a personal level, litter is a mental health issue for pedestrians and litterers alike. I'm here to challenge the commissioners and the city of Athens. Brain Aid is launching the Athens Litter Rescue campaign, asking ourselves, what would Kelly Gertz do whenever you walk by a piece of litter? He would pick it up and dispose of it properly. Renowned author David Sedaris does the same in his community. So do I. Commissioner Tim Denson has already participated in the trash bag challenge. Thank you. I'm not a parent, but Tim is. But I do sometimes remind my parent friends that kids are always watching, always. They notice everything. My grandmother used to say, leave each place cleaner than you found it. I want to make her proud. I'm not OCD about cleanliness. My family and roommates can attest to this. But walking around a sidewalk or through a park should not be like walking in a trash can. We should feel proudest of our community when we are out and about in our community. I recognize that people who litter often have much more pressing life challenges than where to put trash. I want to applaud our sanitation workers and the Keep Athens-Clarke County Beautiful campaign. I saw the Littervention commercial on TV at the Water Business Office the other day. Great job. But we should continually ask ourselves, can we do more? Can we be better? Can we beautify Athens more? I say yes, we can. I propose that we rescue litter. Weird way to say it, but we rescue litter on the first Saturday of each month from 10 a.m. to noon, starting on Saturday, September 7th. So we can discuss this again in four weeks, hopefully. We can also encourage business owners to clean up their lots and surrounding areas on these mornings. Organizations that have sponsored Adopt a Highway signs can rescue litter on their roads on these days as well. I'm not sure they always consistently clean them up. A consistent day for the need for volunteers should aid in recruitment. Ideally, each commissioner here will lead his or her district and meet in the center of their district, then spread out and reunite 2 hours later from 10 to noon. Community and neighborhood leaders can lead organizational efforts in their area as well. That way, commissioners will not need to be in attendance every single month. I've never had perfect attendance. On another note, this will also help people meet some of their neighbors for the first time. Like me, I don't know if I know any of my neighbors' names. which will strengthen our community in incalculable ways. We will need donations from the community and businesses of trash bags, grabbing tool sticks, gloves, hand sanitizer, sunscreen, and bug repellent. Donations of food, coffee, and water will also be appreciated, and trashed or recycled appropriately.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer.
Please accept this challenge, commissioners, and let me know.
Thanks for coming down tonight. Any other public input this evening?
Good evening. Mr. Mayor, the commission, I am here, Diane Dunstan, medical doctor, chair of the board of East Athens Development Corporation, and I just want to thank you because I haven't been here since I appealed to you to relieve us of the tax burden on the Marion Moore lease. We are in a new fiscal year. Happy New Year. Thank you. East Athens Development Corporation appreciates the support. We are happy to enter a new lease at a more fair price, more equitable, as you continue to look at equity and fairness in this community. I want you to look beyond the persons and look at what is being done in the community and for our community. I want to thank those of you who attended, Mayor and Commissioner Parker, the unveiling of the Marion Moore portrait in the community room. We are very excited about the year ahead, despite the fact that I always have mixed emotions when I come up and am reminded that in just the past couple weeks, I lost another baby, 24-year-old. There are reasons that we're losing our children, and it hits some of us at the core, and we can't forget. So, as we were reminded at the community meeting to not trust what politicians say, but follow the budget. That's why I'm here, trying to make sure that I look at carefully the dollars that are allocated, that I do what's right with the dollars that I have allocated, both from the government personally and from private donations, and that you do the same. What are we doing for the youth in our community? Look at your dollars. How have they been spent, and who has benefited? Why were they allocated? You have a prosperity package. Is it 44 million or 4? Oh, okay, 4. Yeah, I know. A lot of money. But when I look at the multi-million dollars that you ask from the citizens, how's it being put back into the community? Who are you supporting? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dunstan. The public input this evening.
Good evening. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Sam Raffle, 230 Spalding Circle, Athens. Unfortunately, I don't have time to address every deception or misconception presented at July's work session in the 3 minutes I have. It's a little bit like playing whack-a-mole with the truth, and I'm being asked to wear a blindfold. Not having access to the raw data is an incredible situation that has to be rectified. But I will start with a rhetorical question. From a public safety perspective, when is it a good idea to take a 911 ambulance out of its coverage zone to run a non-emergency transport that has absolutely nothing to do with 911? A move that inherently weakens your response system. From a public safety perspective, the answer is never. But Dee Burkett at our work session said, if they're going to be the 911 provider, they, and I quote, National EMS, made it very clear that they have to have access to the non-emergency transports that both hospitals would always have. He continued, and I quote, so we have a need every day. These things happen with regularity. So we are highly motivated to move patients out of the hospital as quickly as we can. Mr. Atkins added, we got to get patients out so they can accept new ones. But what in the heck does this have to do with 911 and public safety? The only answer is that it weakens it. So this is why I've been hearing from police officers, firefighters, teachers, public officials, regular citizens for years about delayed response. But manipulated response times and a total lack of transparency are controversial issues. But I want to close by saying that much of what we are asking for is not controversial. We are asking that we, one, expedite the implementation of the Athens-Clarke County Police Department recommendation that we take over all 911 communication to include medical. This is option 4 of the April 2019 version of the report. 2, that we accept the licenses offered to us by the hospitals. This would give us immediate control, accountability, and transparency in a critical aspect of our public safety, and in no way obligates us to run it ourselves. And 3, that we upgrade our first fire response from basic life support to advanced life support. This would get many more life-saving medicines and procedures much closer to patients in their time of greatest need. If you think of those 9 fire stations in Athens-Clarke County, it would also allow for a paramedic to step onto a BLS truck that National has sent to an ALS emergency and immediately upgrade that truck to what that patient needs, advanced life support. We're about a third of the way to this goal with the training that's already in place. And we are asking that this upgrade be studied to quantify the cost. We think it would be tremendous bang for the buck, so to speak. So as always, thank you for your time and have a great evening.
Thank you, Mr. Raffle. Other public input this evening?
Hey, good evening. My name is Bob Gadd, 134 Milton Road in Winterville. First off, I agree with everything Sam just said. It makes perfect sense. I was going through some old papers and found this that some of you should be familiar with. It's dated August of 2017, where it recommends from the fire department to have all 911 calls, including medical, be handled by Clarke County, and also to upgrade the dispatchers to emergency medical dispatch, which will give directions to the caller what to do in the meantime while the ambulance is en route. I'm not sure where this got stonewalled. It's 2 years old, so we're 2 years behind the 8 ball. But please do anything you need to do. I don't know the protocols or sequence you have to go through, but please get this done. It's an easy fix for a big problem, and we really do need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gadd. Any other input this evening? All right. Coming forward, just a couple of things for myself. Do want to note that we have an additional member of the hearings board, as there's been a vacancy, and so I would entertain a motion for appointment of Richard Martin to the term expiring 6/30/23.
Second.
All right, got a motion from Commissioner Denson, second from Commissioner Hamby. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. A couple other appointments. Commissioner Denson has kindly agreed to serve on the Deferred Compensation Board. Thank you for that, sir. And then we have some appointments also to the Upper Oconee Water Basin Authority, of which we are a member, along with Barrow County, Jackson County, and Oconee County. Commissioner Harrod serves as my alternate on that body. Former Commissioner Harry Sims is what's known as our proportional vote representative, and then Glenn Coleman, Director of Public Utilities, is our proportional vote representative alternate. So wanted to make those notes. Also wanted to make commissioners and the public aware that an opportunity open to us is a collaboration with the National Memorial for Peace and Justice in Montgomery, Alabama. They have a collaborative process in which they work with cities particularly those that were the sites of lynchings throughout the sad 400 years that is reaching a timeline this month. Want to let you know that I'll be reaching out tomorrow to the Institute to seek their assistance in collaboration, and it's timely, particularly given our opening of the Office of Inclusion and Diversity. And so I'll follow up and let you know what they lay out as their process for participation. With that, I want to go ahead and move to ask the manager if he has any input tonight.
No, sir.
All right. Anything from our attorney?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and begin with Commissioner Davenport and end with Commissioner Hamby.
All righty. So, okay, let me get my notes. I'm gonna take my time. I'm just kidding. I would like to thank, welcome Judge Ray and Josh Edwards to the office of the attorney's office. So, just welcome you guys. Get lots of sleep and take many vacations. Also, I would like to thank all of us for working on our SPLOST package. It was a lot of hard work. We had a lot of back and forth conversation. I would like to thank the CAC as well as Keith Saunders. I do have some, I would suggest that we do a complete overhaul of the SPLOST process. The CAC, a lot of people that are members of the CAC complain about the length, the time, and also I would like to just suggest that we do a complete audit of the SPLOST the SPLOST office, because it just kind of, it's not good. We're not being good stewards with tax dollars when Commissioner Hamby finds $15 million at the last minute, and that should have been brought up way before we made our final vote. So just complete audit of the SPLOST 2020, as well as, just revisiting the SPLOST, the CAC process. Also, good news, Mayor Dodd of Winterville will be performing September 13th at the Fox Theater. You can get tickets at wintervillegeorgia.com. It should be an awesome show. He's performing with Drive-By Truckers and Driving and Crime. So, Mayor Dodd, yeah, rock on.
And I believe that show benefits the continued renovation of the auditorium in Winterville.
That's correct. And also like to thank Commissioner Jerry Neesmith for assisting me yesterday with a situation with short-term rental properties. Jerry Neesmith is very knowledgeable. He's a walking dictionary, and he answered the questions very formally and adequately, so I really appreciate that. That'll be the only comment or congratulation I give to you. I'm just kidding. Also, for mayor and commission, I would like to do a work session with our IT department. I've been reading about cities across the country getting hit with ransomware. I just want to have a work session with our IT department to make sure that we're in compliance or what the threat level may be, and so we don't be another Jackson County and stuff. But just recommend that we have a work session with the IT department.
I have nothing this evening.
I want to make sure that I get some thanks in here too, also for the SPLOST staff, Keith and all his work. We voted tonight, quite simple, but the whole process was not simple, and we've all worked really hard for a long time. And he in particular with our Citizens Advisory Committee, if we think back at when we decided that we were going to look at all those projects that were just the in-house ones and how overwhelming that was for us. But I think it's a great packet that had a lot of back and forth. And Commissioner Davenport, it might be 10 years before we have to do that again. So we do have a lot of time to look through the process. The same with staff, also the time and effort that was put in that, just our staff with the SPLOST staff. I want to thank you guys for all that hard work. I wanted to thank Chief Spruill for his outreach, as well as his police department for the work at Clarke Gardens. It's been a tough July at the end, and a tragic incident in one of my neighborhoods. So I just want to thank him. They did good work in a tough situation.
Thank you, Mayor. Just have a few things here. First off, I want to let everybody know that the first art shelter was installed today, I believe. It's the Morton Theater themed one. It's over in front of the Health Science Campus on Prince Avenue. And local artist Yvonne Studevin did the artwork for it, did the design for it. It looks amazing, and I'm really excited for the rest of these things to be rolled out also. I did have a question for the manager, if we can get some input. At the purchasing document for the agenda for this month, there's an item for riot control gear purchased for the police department with a federal contract, and I'd just like to know more information about what gear was purchased and the federal contract that was used to purchase it. And let's see. Oh yeah, the last thing is I want to thank solid waste staff, Suki, Corey, and Lavoris, and also Manager Edwards for coming out to the District 5 Town Hall last week, which we focused on solid waste. All the constituents who showed up were amazingly thankful, learned a lot. Some of them so thankful that a couple days later, one of the constituents, who's not even in the urban service district, took dozens of cookies to the solid waste staff just as a thanks for them. So I think that's just like a small piece of the appreciation that everybody has for them. The next District 5 Town Hall will be coming up on August 28th. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Davenport. I want to describe this problem just a little bit because I think we're going to be working on it. The problem with short-term, this particular problem with short-term rentals has nothing to do with tax collections, business licenses. It has to do with an irresponsible owner who's advertising his rental, which he does not occupy, as a party house. And it has a swimming pool and an outdoor bar and a hot tub. And apparently there's some activity there which requires the neighbors to close their blinds and not get sleep. And it's very difficult to assign responsibility or to enforce the laws, although we're going to encourage the police department and code enforcement to be real diligent about this. But there may be another path that our attorney, we talked today, and I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but this is in fact a problem with having an event that's not being managed by the owner of the property. So we may explore the idea of having these events require a permit. And if the police are called for a disturbance, noise, nudity, drugs, drunken driving, that the police can then say, show me your event permit. Let me speak to the owner. Oh, the owner's not here. Show me your event permit. Don't have one. Get out of here. And I think that might be simpler than trying to tackle if a short-term rental, also known as a VRBO or Airbnb, is licensed or something. I mean, certainly we have issues there too, but this particular issue doesn't have anything to do with Airbnb. It has to do with an irresponsible owner who's not there. And when you've got 10, 20, 30 people showing up for a party, alcohol being served, it's not appropriate in a single-family neighborhood. So I'm hoping we can figure out a tactic that we can attack this more clearly and more rapidly than any other path. So thank you for inviting me. I learned a lot.
So y'all went to the party house?
We were next door to it. You want to have a party?
Tina Eckerd, the president of the 5 Points Business Association, and her comrades with that association organized an excellent 5 Points block party a couple weeks ago at the new restaurant in 5 Points called El Barrio, which raised about $5,000 for the Barrow Elementary garden. So kudos to her and her association. It was a great event. Lots of kids and families and a little bit of everybody out there. An entire table full of Condor chocolates. That was great. thanks to Manager Williams and staff from TPW for meeting with me this morning for an hour and a half, trying to figure out what to do with stormwater in District 7. Part of District 7, south of 5 Points, is a basin that collects water from all over 5 Points, and it's a tremendous challenge, capital challenge that we're going to be facing moving forward as we develop this community and encounter undersized stormwater pipes that become full and create tremendous problems for our citizens. So one thing I would like to bring up to my colleagues tonight on Oakdale Avenue in District 7, some of y'all may remember I put a hold on a demolition application there. We had a out-of-state resident who wanted to create a football party pad there and demolish a 1930s era arts and crafts bungalow that's consistent with 2 other historic districts that have been created in that area. So I've been hearing a lot from residents on Oakdale Avenue expressing a desire to extend a demolition moratorium, perhaps 6 months, maybe 12 months, to explore putting down a historic district possibly on part of that avenue to protect just the architecture that's consistent with the existing historic districts adjacent, which include the Woodlawn Historic District, the Rutherford Avenue Historic District, Cloverhurst Historic District, Millage Circle Historic District, Castalia Avenue Historic District. So it's surrounded by historic districts, and it has the consistent architecture. So I just wanted to bring that to my colleagues' attention. You may be hearing more from me on that as we move forward. Thank you for your support.
I don't really have very much to say. I would like to thank, as Commissioner Davenport, I think it was, said, we obviously addressed the SPLOST this evening, and I would like to thank all of the people that served on the Citizens Advisory Committee, all of the people that showed up to the public meetings, and I would particularly like to thank my 2 appointees, Shannon Wilder and Rob Trevina. I'm not quite sure they knew what they were getting into when they agreed to serve. I might have been a little bit parsimonious on details with regards to how much work it would have taken, but I appreciate everybody's service, but I particularly appreciate the 2 of them saying that they would take on this job. Thanks.
Including the chair, Dr. Wilder.
I want to acknowledge, as of even tonight, the Athens-Clarke County Police Department with their National Night Out. I think tonight they're over on the Triangle in Fairview, and this is a national event. And I had planned to be there, but I forgot we had a meeting tonight. So I do want to shout out to the police department. I think they're doing a great job in the community. I've been to several back-to-school events. The 2 that stand out right now, so many were going on, and I try to make my rounds, but the Athens Neighborhood Health Center and the police department, it was a great partnership to see the community come together and with the police in a fun day and back-to-school giveaway. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Karina Gallagher and the success of Grand Slam. It ended last week. I went to several of those events. I think she said the average number of kids were anywhere from 60 to 100 plus. I think that the leisure services did a fantastic job in coordination. And I just want to make sure the people who are in the community that we don't say anything about until there's a problem, I want to make sure I try to recognize those folk. So, which leads me to, which is not a good report, is the recent shooting in Clark Gardens. I hope, and I think I had texted you, Mayor Gertz, that I wanted to talk to you, but I didn't know you were out of town. the local government, we need to address violence in this community as a top priority. What that looks like, I do not know. People are calling me. I've met with several groups of folk, and these are not your typical celebrity folk, you know. They're very concerned people that want to do something. They just need some guidance. I can't personally take this on, but we are meeting, and we're meeting. This will be my third meeting with them next Sunday. But I have promised that the local government is concerned about the violence in this community and wants to be proactive. Now, if I'm wrong, somebody needs to correct me publicly. But it just seems as though when it comes to black-on-black crime, very little is said. We just kind of brush it off. We rather talk about drains and streets and stuff, but this is an issue in this community, and it's not going to get any better if we don't take an active participation. And I don't know what that is. I don't know. But I always have a problem when we have these we get all fired up about something, and then it fizzles out until we have a problem again. So we need to do something as elected officials to first to acknowledge that we recognize that this is a problem, and secondly, we need to do something about it. My last thing is I am glad that I hope you had a good vacation, Blaine, because now we're getting down to work. I will be coming to see you about the prosperity package training. I do want to make sure that we're all on the same page, so I don't want to surprise you. So I will be coming to see you, and several other commissioners already know what my concerns are, but we need to talk before our training. I think we're doing real good.
Thank you. And I'll just kind of echo what Commissioner Thornton has said about the crime, and maybe an option would be to have our police chief come to us and visit with us and describe his strategies for helping address this. If I'm hopeful there are strategies, or if not, then we need to get some strategies from that standpoint. So the other thing I'd like to talk about is very briefly some timelines associated with what we're doing with the Kelly Diversified Building. I'd like to know what that timeline's looking like. I'm hoping that something will be happening there before the end of the year, at least not January. I know some we're depending upon that for. We talked about it as part of our office of certainly a small minority business center. So there's people that have heard about it, are anticipating something happening there. So we need to make sure it happens quicker rather than later. So a timeline associated with that, a timeline associated with the property in front of Indigo. I know that that project fell through, so we need to hop back on board and seeing what we can do to make something viable happen there. I don't know what that is, but we shouldn't just sit on our laurels waiting for somebody to come to us. I know Mayor Gertz at the time when he was commissioner was very much an advocate for helping something happen there. So it's a great piece of property that be nice to find some public-private partnership to work with on that. If not, then what is ideal there, then come to us with a plan so that we can have something there besides a surface parking lot that doesn't do us much good. The second timeline, and I'm not trying to be presumptuous at all, because I know we just passed the SPLOST package and have a good SPLOST package before the citizens to vote on, and I certainly am in favor of it and hope it passes and think it'll be a transformational SPLOST for this community. It's got a lot of good projects on it that's gonna do a lot of good. With that said, I think we ought to be ready to hit the ground running if it does pass. And there's no sense in us not being ready. I mean, to plan. There's nothing wrong with planning, and by planning I mean let's start looking at a timeline for how some of these projects will roll out. Some of these projects will require some land associated with it. Let's start looking into how that can play out, a timeline for that, and a timeline to address what Commissioner Davenport brought up, and I agree with. There are some questions I have about certainly our SPLOST management and how that's being operated. I'd just like for this body to be able to discuss that and to be able to decide whether or not we want to renew that contract that we have. They're not particular government employees. They are a private entity that we contract with to manage our SPLOST office. So I just think the discussion is warranted about that, about the next 10 years. I mean, certainly they've done fine for the past, oh goodness, since SPLOST has been in existence from that standpoint. And it makes me wonder, we always talk about process in this government, and it makes me, sometimes we got to look at that process and see what that process looks like and whether or not what was working 20 or 30 years ago is the same process we ought to keep following. Maybe there's a way we can do things quicker. Maybe there's a way where we can move from concept to design to building quicker. And maybe it involves some new people at the table. Who knows? So, and if not, that's something for us to discuss. But anyway, I'm not going to take up more of your time with that. So timeline on Kelly Diverside, timeline on the Indigo prop in front of the parking lot in front of Indigo, and some sort of timeline on SPLOST. And Ovita has written stop across my paper real fast. So I will make a motion to adjourn.
All right, I've got a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion from Commissioner Hamby to adjourn, second from Commissioner Parker. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, go forth and do well.